The Varishavan Jidin Jamba, Jivon de Vakanoju, Lana Meba, Lada Menangitum, Sajum de Beja, Shajatuba, Sazen Loju, Jazu Jima, Demba, Jumde, the Jijavan Dajumba Yanda, Zobesan, Rewada Shazun Demba, the Varishavan Jidin Jim, Jivon de Vakanoju, Lana, Lada Menangitum, Sanjijum, Benjawa Shajatuba, Sazen Loju, Jazu. Demba Jumden de Jinshavan Dajumba Yanda. Zobe Sanjere Vada Shazun Demba Devarish Jidin Jamba Jivun de Vakano Juba Lana Lana Minanje Demba Sanje Jumden de Beja Shaja Dubala Chazano Chudo Jazu Share Kanze Kanyazo Jadum Zea Sajan de Nabamba Dubra Nanin Jidin de Najoje Son de Zekiava Juma Chaz Namda Gunga Jodo Susan Wayishi Jazu Sejan Chaban Jidin Sumnama Mego Mochuni Juma Chaz Chenjo Demba Timenda Vishi Sendo Java Juma Chaz The region of Seva Suma Janyame Jenji Juma Chaz Gumbo to Jeja Demba Tamje Chimbe Demba Sonoma Yude Jazu The Shishala Chaz and Motabe de Jachuma Giving is on the Chida Tenum Jojo Washin Jona Chaz and Trene Lavada Rab the Ne Shingatama Yen and Giduma Chaz Undi Vajaya Misha Jengiva Person so Vajarangisim the Yuzu. Tenesanje Demanya Kamaravi Mameda Jumaseva Juba. Milon Loda Genda Vondijation of the Rada Sonam Diatam Jizima. Abandonment Jinja de Dengada Nada Shiva Sibia Zolendo One Jova.
To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. To the teacher, the blessed one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Sugata, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the blessed one, the glorious conqueror, the subdue from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When was supreme among humans you were born on this earth, you placed out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With the pure body's form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like golden mountain, flame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, to you I prostrate. With your supreme silence, face like spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the filled of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one born to thusness I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtues which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to the Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated can also show the path to liberation. The holy few qualified with the realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous action. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, or flame of the lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning or cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain recoverable, seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from the ocean of suffering, of aging, sickness, and death.
Sanje Jono Zojo Jono no Chanjo Bantu Dane Jazu. Dagin Jazo Jeva Zona Jia Dola Penje Sanje Dovish. Sanje Jono Zojo Jono no Chanjo Bantu Dane Jazu. Dagin Jazo Jeva Zona Jia Dola Penje Sanje Dovish. Sanje Jono Zojo Jono no Chanjo Bantu Dane Jazu. Dagin Jazo Jeva Zona Jia Dola Penje Sanje Dovish.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving in the other professions, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving in the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving in the other perfections, may I quickly attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Nanda Chironya Dala, Dada Benya, Yavan, Baba, Jose, Ledon Mosevadara, Ledon Manam, Teta Juban, Tomani, Dawaja, Dajuja, Damage, Sanjan, Damega, Jabra over there, Simju and Dobazo, Majapata, Chunin, the song, Tamja Yanda, 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 Majin, Yanda, Mimi, Yanda, Dinner Sanji Demo. Sheneshi Mejabano, Jabano, Jamadu, Nabdo, Dinner, Kamadina Banjobo, Dinner Rigid, Deleshamba, Madame Sanji, Nobanaja, Dambadu, Tunjumania, Chema, Zosanya Majujan, Yedona, the Seven, Ransaji, Dembamela, Dana Jua, Navajavara, Dujava, Joje, Kange, Jana Jubano, Sudan, Nabajo, Danger Jomasuma. So, I think we are on the page 156, right? 156. Oh. We finish this one. When here in intrinsically ceased, only then number 9, stanza number 9.
That's stanza number 10.
10, right? We are on 10. Stanzas number 10s. So number 10s, number 10 here. Just before that, number 10 is saying that having thereby to demonstrate the complete impossibility of liberations for the advocate of intrinsically real things by reasoning already expressed, the Nagarjunas make this statement to demonstrate the possibility of liberations for the advocate of whiteness. So all these arguments, if you think like anything that you think there's a, in the perspective of intrinsic property in the phenomena, and there's no way you can, probably says you cannot see the liberations of the nirvana. You cannot realize transcendence of the nirvana because the nirvana and the transcendental sufferings only you can see in this, absence of intrinsic existence. So, Siddhantika school, point of views, Vavashika schools, mind-only schools, their kind of understanding has no actual, real, the pure liberation is not, they haven't seen yet. They haven't known yet, because they're all trying to see the liberation in, through the intrinsic properties. So it is only possible, remember that in the Right Seedling Sutra, the Buddha says, the bhikshu, whoever sees the dependent originations, sees the Dharma. Whoever sees the Dharma, sees the Buddha. So here the dependent originations, the settled dependent originations means understanding the absence of intrinsic existence. So through that absence of intrinsic existence, you can see the possibility of the cessation of all the afflictive emotions, or cause of the end of the cause of suffering. So which means seeing liberations or the transcendental sufferings through the dependent originations means, when you realize the things are devoid of intrinsic property and meditating on that absence of intrinsic property, then it will come to you that understanding, oh yes, now there is the possible end of all the misconceptions, ignorance, all the afflictive emotions. So if you see that, and then you're also seeing the possibility of the Buddha. So standards number 10 said, when one discerns that precise intuitions, what occurs conditioned by the misknowledge. So when one discerns with the precise intuitions, means when one discern the the ultimate reality, so emptiness of ultimate reality, through direct experience of emptiness. So then you can see what occurs and conditioned by the misknowledge. Then you can understand perfectly what is what is mean by cyclic existence, what is mean by karma and consciousness driven by the ignorance. So this is like the person who has eye disease. Once he by applying the medicines or taking the medicines, once he is free from that eye disease, then he can understand what is the problem of the eye disease, what is the defects of the eye disease. A person could not free from, and then he may see, whatever he is seeing through the eye disease may be the real. So, when one discerns with precise intuitions what occurs conditioned by the misknowledge. So in that, now going back to the first line, when one discerns with precise intuitions, that precise intuitions, one does not experience anything, whether created or the ceased, whether arising or the disintegrations, or the birth or the death, is not real, in the face of that wisdom realizing emptiness. So this is what I'm saying, the minister we discussed on that, saying that there is no absolute birth and absolute death, because conventionally the death and the birth is, two different meaning, right? Two different meaning. So as it, distincted two different meaning, in conventionally, what we kind of, so far through the language and the culture, what we understand conventionally is death is totally different from the birth. Birth is totally different from the death. So if there is absolute, then when there is death, there should not be birth. When there is birth, there should not be a death. Or whoever has died, that person, whoever has died, at the time of the death, he cannot be born. And the time of the birth, when he born, and there is no way or any condition, he cannot be died at the time. So then says, if the persons, for example, Geshela, the person as Geshela. So when he died, the moment that he, death of this person, Geshela, death, there should not be any birth of him. So in reality, yes, the very moment he died, there is birth, in Pardo or intermediate state, or, formless realm or form realm or God realm and human realms. So without having birth, there is no possible of the death. So death means, relatively, one that is life in the previously, that has end relatively, and then says it is died. He has died. That does not mean at that moment, he hasn't born. If there is the absolute death, and then it is only the death, there is no birth. So which means, so the from the point of view of, wisdom realizing emptiness, do not see anything. There is birth or the death. There is arising or there is disintegrations. Because arising and the disintegration is unreal, therefore it is only exists subjectively, relatively. So this is what I'm saying, number 10. When one discerns with precise intuitions, wisdom, understands the ultimate truth. So anything that is conventionally known, arising or the disintegrations, what occurs the condition by the misknowledge. So now it seems like the birth, real truth is appeared through the misknowledge. So, the absolute birth, absolute truth, or real birth, real truth. So you can see, you can conceive, you can imagine, you can know. It is not possible without misknowledge. So with misknowledge, you may imagine, you may conceive the birth and the death. So therefore, from the point of view of the wisdom realizing emptiness, there is no such thing as arising or disintegrations. Whether created or ceased, in the phrase, what occurs the condition by the misknowledge refer to prime conditions of the sequence of the relativity seen in the direct experience of the object, such as creation and consciousness. So I think the translator always used here, because maybe he could not really understand. Every time in the Tibetan language, Geshe and number Shabas. So whenever there is the word Geshe, with relation to the ignorance and the consciousness, that always referring to the karma, not the condition. It is karma, means. So in here, the translator translate is the creations. That maybe is not really, it's kind of need to be fixed.
What would should karma? It should be just karma.
Yeah, it's a karma. So in the sentence, when there is ignorance and conditions or the consciousness, that condition means is karma. So now saying conditioned misknowledge, mistaken knowledge refer to prime condition of the sequence relativity seen in direct experience of the object, such as creation in consciousness and so forth. If objects such as creations, like the karma, which arises conditioned by ignorance, the misknowledge, were intrinsically established. Now this is the hypothetical, So now first this is, through the, understanding of the absence of intrinsic existence, do not see anything such as karma, karma or the consciousness or birth or the death. Do not see that. And which means, from the point of view of the absence of intrinsic existence, there is no such thing, cause and effect. There is no such thing as relation of the cause and effect. And then, that does not mean, and generally there is no cause and effect. Generally there is no, that does not mean generally there is no karma in consciousness. As karma in consciousness, birth and the death is relatively it exists. So therefore, relatively exists is unreal. Therefore, wisdom, wisdom understanding emptiness, could not conceive or imagine or perceive anything as the birth or the death. So then, and now saying, if, so hypothetical, the creation, the karma arises by the misknowledge, were intrinsically established. Ignorance is the one unit that is independent from the karma. Karma is one of the independent unit that is different from ignorance. So what if this independently, they both exist? So they could not depend on the conditions such as misknowledge. So then it says, if karma and ignorance are independent, they are different. So then the karma, is no longer depending on ignorance. Since they would be established in the terms of their intrinsic identity, in that case, for example, intrinsically identifiable things such as pot would be perceived perfectly clearly in terms of their essential natures. Now saying that, for example, like when you see the pot in the light, and because it's free from darkness, so you can see, the pot, which is different from other objects, the red color, the different from the orange color different from the white. So you can see, So in this way, that like, in another word, is like karma and ignorance are like black and white, apple and orange, So darkness, when the darkness of the obscurations no longer exists, something imagined by someone with an eye disease because of the particular conditions. So I think that so which means, if karma and ignorance is different, physically different, substantially different, they're independent, So then the karma is no longer dependent on ignorance, and they are actually different, like the cow and horse, apple and orange, and it can be uh, directly. It can be. These are all obvious object for the direct perceptions, like black and white. So there's something that imagine someone with eye disease because of the particular conditions is cognized falling hairs and so forth, yet has no essential nature and does not appear to those perfectly clear visions. So now they're saying that, that, for example, the two persons, one with the eye disease, one, without eye disease, free from all the disease, and the one that opened eye, he could not see, there's a fly or the hair falling. And then another person with eye disease constantly, seeing there's some kind of hair fallings or the flies, So, so it's kind of here, it is setting the example, the cycle, cycle of the life is only appears cycling, right? Cycling, repeating of the birth and death is only seen with, misknowledge, with someone who has, whose mind is, associated, underpinned with ignorance. They see the cycle of life. So one who sees the absolute truth through the point of view of that wisdom and could not see there's nothing cycling. So now says Arhat, while with this body, he did not see his cycle life. And then another person, samsaric being, he sees the cycle life. So what makes the Arhat not seeing the cyclic, existence, and another person, the one who's with ignorance, see the cyclic life. So then says this is like the person with, with eye disease, and another person, the person with eye without disease, clear visions. So I think this also can raise some kind of ambiguities. Does that mean that cyclic existing is, not existing generally? Because it only appears to the, one with ignorance. So I think these, when we analyze, when we through the analogies, when we think about what is cycling, what is cycling? Is it the body is cycling, or the faculties are cycling, or the consciousness are cycling? Each consciousness, eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness. These are individual, kind of, individually occurs through particular sense faculties, each perceptions. So there is no sign of there being cycling, there being repeating, happening, But, sentient beings, when we seize, when we seize the, what happened if I die? Where where can I be born? I don't want to be born in the hell realm. I don't want to be born in the animal realms. I don't want to be born in the god realms. I don't want to be born. And then within the human beings, with a lot of there's a some kind of concern, right? So when you're concerning about those many births, we think there's the one individual, one entity, one person is a single unit, which may, right now it is present, it again, reappears in the another different realms. So this is kind of, this is how when we imagine, when we see the many lives, so it kind of brings some kind of concern, worry, because this very person is, reappearing again in another form, another realms. So when we look at the, universal condition, seed and sprout, milk to the yogurt. So there is nothing repeating. Seed, putting in the soil with water and soil and heat and the wind, gradually disintegrating, processing and disintegrating. And then once this, final, it ends its own identity of the seeds may, once it ceased to exist. And that whatever has ceased to exist never reappear, is never coming back. So the movement of the seed has ceased. So another form of the sprout has manifested. So that remains for a while, and that ceased, another thing comes. There is nothing repeating. If there is no repeating in the plants, in the flowers, in the rocks, in the waters, in the airs, there's nothing repeating. Everything ceases to exist, and then after having ceased, something continue from it. So then why, when this life ends, why this person with this life reappear again? So therefore, one of the reasons is they do not cease their cycling life, So they says, oh, I have ended the birth, I have ended the birth in cyclic existence, or, which means that does not mean that the Arhat, accept that he has been repeatedly existing, now that repeatedly existing has stopped. So it simply means that now, he knows there is nothing repeating. And there is no condition to repeatedly happen, because afflictive emotion has ended, it ceased to exist, or disappears in emptiness. So that condition, the ignorance, because before the ignorance projects the cycle of life, now when the ignorance disappears in emptiness, the projection of the ignorance will also cease to exist. So this is almost like one who sees their life is cycling is the person with eye disease. They constantly seeing before the eye. There are some kind of flies constantly happening, and air falling, or the fly is flying here and there. And once the person is free from that eye disease, then he stops seeing this, all these distractions. So this is what Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti in the commentaries, he's kind of saying that cycling is, the word cycle is named on appearing of the cycling. So appearing of the cycling is a private property of, is a consciousness. It is not intrinsic property that is outside of the consciousness. There's something cycling. So I think I mentioned that before, like, when we, for example, when there is the rope that you, start put the fire on the one edge of the rope. When you put the fire, the fire consumes the rope, gradually or continuously. So, once the fire starts from the left side and you just go to the right side, you look at the fire, it seems coming. The fire is coming towards the, towards the end of that. And then if you start burning from here, you see from there, the fire is also coming there. So the coming now is the logically, the fire, first inch of that rope is firing, So that fire is due to fueled by that inch of the rope. So once the rope has consumed by fire, destroyed by fire, and there is no, it has no potential to fuel the fire, which means the second inch has to produce the fire. So there is no, fire is not cycling, fire is not going or moving, fire is keep burning. But it, when you see that sequence, whole sequence, it appears to the mind the fire is, coming from the left to the right, right to the left. The coming and going is based on appearance, not in the substantial level. And then you can also say the cycle, from the milk to the yogurt. So there is nothing, going from the duration of the cause, any part, any particles, any fractions of the causal time is moving or going towards the resultant time. Any resultant time has never come from the causal time. But when the cause continuously turning, disintegrating, turning into something else, that keeps this kind of, it creates the appearance of moving. So this, something imagined that by someone with eye disease because of the particular conditions is cognized as falling here and so forth. So forth, that includes, flies, seeing the flies, and yet has no essential nature. There is no such thing in the reality, but there is appearance of the falling hairs and the flies, flying around, and does not appear to those perfectly clear visions. So how do you know that is not in the actually happening? Because once the person's eyes free from that eye disease, he stops seeing it. Just so, the intrinsically established things which are imagined in just such manner, like falling hairs, cannot be established as existing, like real hairs, and so forth. So now this is kind of, in the commentaries, explicitly saying that there is no such thing, cycling, in the absolute level, in the real, there is no such thing. Similarly, if these creations and so forth were intrinsically established, then even noble individual whose correct intuitions comes from determining the meaning of the truth would see this intrinsic identity as inviolable, right? So something that is true. If this is really true, the cyclic existing is, truly exist, and Arhat and Buddha, should see, there's something that is, repeatedly happening. If the human beings, the samsaric beings are repeatedly existing, repeatedly appearing, why not barley sprout and rice, tomatoes? Why not? They're repeatedly happening. So what lacks in this, the tomato seed and barley seed and the flower seed? So what is the additional cause for the sentient beings to repeatedly happening, and tomatoes not repeatedly happening? So this is saying similarly in the creation, so forth, were intrinsically established. Then even the noble individuals who correct intuitions, so noble beings who has this wisdom, the correct wisdom, the understanding the absence of intrinsic existence, they should also determining the meaning of the truth. They have determining the meaning of the truth, would see their intrinsic identity as inviolable, and would perceive things such as pot as existing according with its appearance. So would perceive things such as pot, like, so like you see the pot in the light, where you see the pot in the light means where you see the pot and the flower, in the light, they are physically different. So a karma and ignorance are like pot and flower, then they are independent. So main thing is what it's trying to say, point out is, yes, there is 12 links of dependent originations. First the karma, due to the karma, and first the ignorance, and then there's the karma, and then the consciousness. So there's some kind of chain of the conditions. So that chain of the condition, and it is not really substantially there is the link, So first ignorance and the karma and the consciousness. So within the 12 links of the dependent origination, sentient beings, cycling in the samsara, that cycle is, the cycle of life is, the cyclic life is, it exists in appearance level, not at a substantial level. So cyclic is based on appearance level, not in substantial, not in real happening on the ground. If it were reasonable for them to be such object, there would no scriptural statement like, since misknowledge has ceased. So then they're saying that, if the karma in the consciousness, in the language, we say, we kind of set up in the line, in the chain. And in the reality, they remain, like in the order, the different remain. Then, so karma and consciousness is two independent phenomena,
then probably, and it's not really fit in the statement like, by overcoming ignorance, overcome karma. So, because they are two different, destroying the pot is not destroying the flower. Destroying the flower is not necessarily destroying the pot. So yeah, the statement like, since the misknowledge has ceased, emotion have ceased. Yet, since when the perfect insight dawns, perfect insight, like here seen by those with eye disease, and intrinsic identity does not appear, intrinsically identifiable, the existing cannot be established. So, yes, there is seems, in the in the projections of the languages, there seems there is, how's that, different, the order of the cosmic conditions, ignorance, karma, and consciousness. They're lined up like, like many, the animals, they line up, all they line up. If this is the real case, then by destroying one, that is not destroying the rest. You have to destroy one by one. And in the statement, the Buddha says, by overcoming ignorance, overcome all the afflictive emotions. So, how it is possible once the ignorance and karma is remain independent. So now saying the ignorant, the cyclic existing is the projections that projected through the misconceptions. And whoever the mind associating or underpinned with this misconception sees there is cyclic existence. So the Arhat also understands the sentient beings whose mind are still under the force of the ignorance. Arhat and Buddha sees, so they have this kind of projections of the cyclic existence. So because their mind is Arhats, their mind is free from misconceptions, no ignorance, they don't see what is cyclic. Intrinsically existing cannot be established. Hence, when things arisen from the condition of the misknowledge, the creation and so forth, a karma and consciousness, and name and form, faculties, contact, feelings, all these forth are analyzed by those with accurate intuitions. So this whole, the 12 links and the dependent originations, the orders of the 12 links and dependent originations, the chain of the 12 links and dependent originations, when we analyze with, the wisdom, and they are all lie. They don't have, real nature. Like those with disease, disease-free eye, at the time of precise intuitions, the projections, destructions of the creations, and so forth are definitely not seen. Just as the hearers seen by those with eye disease and so forth are not seen by the unafflicted. Now, I think there's a, this is very, very, interesting point, because, every time when we think about cyclic existence, seeking liberation is because there's some kind of desire to renounce from to get out from the secular existence. If there is no secular existence, there's no desire. There is no actual desire for the liberations that can lead you to the state of transcendental suffering. So, when there is the renunciations, there's the real renunciations, there is the real possibility of liberations. That means there must be real secular existence. If not, secular existing is not real, and liberation is not real. If liberation is not real, renunciation is not real. Now, so Chandrakirti is saying, seeing the cyclic life is due to the misconception. And seeing, someone is getting out of secular existing is also, is one of the projections from the misconception. And seeing someone in samsaric, samsaric being, turning into liberated being, according to Chandrakirti saying, this is also out of misconceptions. And why? Because the stanzas number, one of the stanzas numbers saying, in Tibet is Siba Yonsu Sheba Ni, Siba, understanding perfectly, understanding, secular existing as it is, attaining liberations. So if you think, because you are seeking liberations, and because of this, if you have, because of there is a desire for the liberations, therefore you imagine, you create the picture that now you are, in the samsaric being. So you want to, samsara is something that you are trapped in. You're trying to get out from that samsara and, jump into the liberation state. So that means you do not understand, you do not understand the, the actual, the nature of the liberations. So then why? Because seeing the samsara and liberation as two independent phenomena, or the apple and orange, is also the misconceptions. So then, what is the what is the samsara and what is the liberations? And when the mind with misconceptions, everything that you see, you are experiencing in samsara. When the mind free from the misconceptions, anything that you see, hear, smell, taste, feel, and then, knowing is you are not in samsara. So if there is some kind of physical, trap as a samsara, and you're trying to get out from that, means you do not understand the liberations. I think this is very hard to kind of digest that, because, all these, Dharma teachings, it's some kind of, informs you, or, some kind of informs you in a polluted way, So you picture that you are in the place that is now is not suitable for you. Now you have to get out from that. Yeah. So the cyclic, 12 links, the chain of the 12 links of dependent origination, the order of the 12 links of dependent originations, that orders is the projections. It's created through the languages. It is imagined by the thought, and that is how there is, appearance of the chain of the 12 links of dependent originations. There's the order of the 12 links of originations, and the individual, the person who is going through this 12 links of dependent originations, it also creates the appearance of the cycling life. So this whole, without the misconceptions, you do not see that's anything that is, there is the, chain of 12 linked originations. There's the order in the 12 linked originations. There is no cycling in samsara. So some, arhat in between us, someone who's, is not correctly understands. So I think here, for example, when we think about the karma, what is the karma? What is the karma? First we imagine ignorance, due to ignorance, and there's the karma. And then we say how, ignorant, conditioning the karma. And then we say ignorant conditioning the karma means ignorance creates the object for the emotional to react. The ignorance creates anger, attachment, compassion, desires, all of this, right? And then we ignorance, all these emotionals sees the intrinsic property, favorable, unfavorable. That intrinsic favorable, unfavorable is projected by ignorance, and that consume a converso is grasping by the emotionals, and then that emotionals comes through expressions, physical, verbal, and mentally. So that expressions is called karma. So now the question is, why you are creating the karma, while you are creating the karma, when you express something, desirable, which means at that time there's the desire, So while you are creating the karma, at that time it is required there must be some emotional. And while you are emotional, there must be, at that time, there is ignorance projecting in the intrinsic property. So then how he says ignorant conditioning, it is all this not like the the what call it is not like the mother giving birth to the child separately. So it is ignorance means while you are grasping at intrinsic property, while you are grasping intrinsic property, at that time, and there's intrinsic property sometimes is favorable and unfavorable, and that means your emotional is reacting. The attachment sees intrinsically favorable, anger sees intrinsically unfavorable. And then when you have this kind of emotional, and that expresses, that comes through your physical and verbal actions. So that is called karma. So when you look at, into that, the process of that, there is no chain. ignorance first in the karma, and not staying not right after the ignorance. It's at the ignorance. But when you count the 12 links in dependent origination, that language, construct the chain, line, order. So when there is chain and line and order, and sentient beings continues going through this 12 links in dependent origination, and that creates another level of the appearance. So then says, oh, there's a cyclic existence. That whole cyclic existing is, as long as there's ignorance, you see the cycle of life. When you reveal the emptiness and continuously meditating on that, once the mind is free from the ignorance and stops seeing the cyclic existence. So that is also one of the reasons that you have ended the cyclic life. And you have ended the cyclic life means, that does not mean that there is, the actually and the truly cyclic life in the past. Therefore, now you end it. So you have ended the cyclic life means you have, stopped seeing this cyclic life, cyclic existence, because previously you are seeing the cyclic existing is due to the misconceptions. Now your mind is free from the ignorance. It stops seeing the cyclic life. So this is like persons, before with eye disease. Now he is free from that disease and clear visions, and stop seeing the hair fallings. Yeah, there must be, This is kind of, it really stir up many questions, because because all this, religious teaching, Dharma teachings, it's kind of it's give you some kind of picture. So liberations and cyclic existence, there's the possible of being liberated. So you're always seeing the samsara and the liberation in imaginations. So this is why sentient beings sees samsara and the liberation in the assumption, and arhat see the samsara and nirvana in non-dualities. In the assumptions, yes, there's two. In the understanding, the perfect understanding of the reality, they see non-duality. There is no dualistic samsara in liberations. Yeah, this is a very, very, powerful, critique. Yeah. So I think in order to understand this, first maybe we think, is there cyclic existing in tomorrow? Tomorrow is cycling, cycle, tomorrow has a cycle life, If tomorrow is not, there is no cycle in the tomorrow, right? And why? Because each tomorrow is born and that ceases to exist. And then from there another born, and that produces another seed, that gives birth another one. There is no one single tomato that you can pick. So this is cycling. So there is, in this way, there is no cycling in tomato, There is no cycling in, rice, cycling in the rock, and cycling in the water, cycling in the air. So each air, once appears and ceases to exist, another air comes and it ceases to, remain and cease to exist. So if everything appears and ceases to exist, continues with another one, and what is cycling? So, and then another way the cycle is, we are kind of, our mind is, kind of like trapped in believing that anything that I see and hear, smell, is a substantial, intrinsic, the color, sound, smell, taste, textures, they exist by their own essence. And if your mind is totally consumed in believing in this, is also one of the samsara, is a trap. So the color is, it's constructed or created from the contact of the space, light, and that translated maybe. So the color is created between I sense power, and the light and the space. So the color do not have independent identity, or color do not exist by itself, in and of itself. So color has no essence to be existing, different from light, different from space, different from the sense power. And similarly, sound, sound do not exist, inherent in, heat or wind or, moistures or anything. So do not inherent in elements, and they are simply exists from the vibrations of the elements, and that translated by the sense power as a sound. So the sound do not have any essence, to be identified itself, to be existing by itself. So it's kind of, your mind is totally, relaxed and without any doubt, totally consumed, right, in that believing is that samsara is a trap. It's one of the reasons is samsara means like that. So now another way is cycle is in this way, so each of you see the color has its own identity, single unit, independent. Sound is also, single unit by itself. Smell is also a single unit by itself. So all the sound and smell and taste and textures, all of them independently, in the single unit, existing by in and of itself. Then the act of seeing is also independent, and one who sees, the agent, is also independent. So then, this independent I with color, with act of seeing, with different form and actions and the object. So when you see that, and this person is also, the independent self is also, you see that in the continuities, in the previous life to this life to the next life. So there's just, you kind of seeing this, one independent single unit self, the person that is coming from the past, staying in the present, now is going to move towards the futures. So that whole picture is without misconceptions, you cannot have this, mental projections. So this is why the samsara is cyclic life is, is the creation from the misconception. So because of the samsara is the creation of the misconceptions, and by ending, misconceptions is ending the samsara. So how you end the samsara, how you end the misconceptions, ended by the wisdom realizing emptiness. The wisdom realizing emptiness, how this destroy, how this kind of eradicates the misconceptions, means wisdom realizing emptiness. Wisdom realizing emptiness is directly what is explicitly what is seeing is everything is absence of intrinsic. And then within there, the absence of intrinsic, within that emptiness, you see the misconception is disappearing. Misconceptions not only disappearing, it is exhausted, is finished, it destroyed, it is ended within the emptiness. So, so there is no such thing as a liberation and samsara as physically two separate, separate thing. Never be the separate, yeah. So this is like sometimes they say, the another example is, the person who is in the dream, they constantly, fear and attach in the dream. And as long as this, ignorance, as long as there's ignorance, then believing in every object appears in the dream, you are in samsara. And the moment that you are awake from that, and all objects that you believe, you're fearing of those objects, you attach to those objects. Moment do you awake, all disappears in space. It is, there is no kind of effort or any action needed to destroy each of the object. You just simply awake, and then all the dream objects disappears in the space. So now Chandrakirti also saying samsara is also like that. In samsaric problems, samsaric fear, samsaric attachment, samsaric the hateful objects, all of them is mind is reacting with their own projections. So when the mind is awake, all objection disappears in the space, and then free from all the misconceptions. So now so this stanza number 10 is saying that, when one discerns with precise intuitions, and then, one does not experience anything, whether created or ceased, whether arise or, destroy or cease to exist. So then you read another. So in the condition that you see arising and the cessations, birth and the death, and that projects so many objects. Some objects, causes the fear, some objects causes the attachment, and that all occurs the condition by misknowledge. So the misknowledge, ignorance, and all this, you see there is many reason to be, it's almost like there's a right to believe, right to concern, right to fear, right to attach, right to angry, So there's many reasons. And then if these are all true, then saying this should be also, Arhat and Buddha also have this eye consciousness, air consciousness, nose consciousness, mental consciousness. Why they could stay peace all the time? You have same eyes, same nose, same tongue consciousness, body consciousness, mental consciousness. Because, their mind stopped seeing all these mental projections. I think we have to reflect on the previous stanzas. Sometimes yeah. So here. So stanzas number 3 is saying, if things were really true as the naive construe them, then why not accept, their nothingness as liberations? If things were true, as you construe them, as you see, from your own perspective, everything is true, then, what is the need for the path, the wisdom I? So if you think you need the wisdom I, you need another path, you need another knowledge, that could lead you to much happier. So which means, one part of yourself sees there's something problem, and there's something need to fix, and where I see things, where I believe, and another half of yourself says everything is true as I believe, as I see, So now say which one you want to, So you take stance, So if you think there's need, the wisdom, wisdom I, there's no need, there's need for another path, another knowledge, another wisdom that could lead you to a much happier place. So if you accept that, and you have to accept, where I see things, where I perceive things, has need to be fixed. It is, there's many things there's the way you see things, where you perceive has mistaken. So you cannot have both, So everything that I see is true as I see, and also I need the wisdom I. It's almost like, you have an Apple Watch, now you need another watch, just put it on the wall. So you have you have iPad Pro, and then now again you need iPad, Air. This is like that, So So that those who do not see the reality presume the duality life cyclically existing in nirvana. Those who do see the reality do not presume either the life of cyclically existing or nirvana. So now this is the sentence number 5, is saying that now you see in your mind, or you're really thinking, you're believing, there is a samsara that I'm trying to get out from. There is, another place or another form and, another locations. So there's some liberations that I need to, get to there. So that means those who do not see the reality presume the duality, life cycle and nirvana. The duality of life cycle existing in nirvana is two things. One that you're trying to get out from, one that you're trying to get to there. And then the Arhat and Buddha do not see, there is samsara to get out from, there is liberation to go, So now, so you say, the Arhat and all the Buddha says, oh, there is no samsara to get out from. There is a liberation to go. And we all says, yes, we are trying to get out from samsara. We are trying to get to the liberations. Then Arhat, the Buddha says, no. And so then, and what path do you follow? What path that you follow? What the teaching that you follow? That you're trying to get out from the samsara and going towards the liberations. When Buddha says there is no, so whose teaching is that? So this is a very big question, yeah. So then standard number 6 is of the two, the existing, samsara and nirvana, neither is known to exist. Intrinsically, the full understanding of the existing, full understanding of the samsara is what is called nirvana. If you understand the cycle existing, why, what is the cycle existence, why there is, mind that, starts seeing the cycle existence, cycle of life. If you understand perfectly, then you see the cycle life that I see is due to the misconceptions. So if you completely understand and stop seeing the whole cycle of life, so that is, Nagarjuna said, there's nirvana. I think our Dharma teachings, we should, restart. So restart Dharma teaching. Informations that we collected, it all says yes, nirvana and samsara is, is a true place. So yeah, any questions? So this is kind of very, very, sometimes we call Changdewa means, it is directly pointing at, your understanding, says, is become, it creates some kind of, doubt, it makes you, imperfect. So yeah, the cycle is, if cycle of life is, if only you are thinking that cyclic is continuity, is in every condition of things, like, a barley seed and sprout, the continuity barley seed and sprout, milk to the yogurt continuities, and then one life to the another life. So there's the continuities. If the continuations is cyclic existence, then continuity is the nature of the conditional things. So there is the continuity of the omniscient, noble wisdoms. So when Arhat attained nirvana, that does not end his wisdom. The wisdom is continuously existing. So the peace of the Arhat continues to remain. The bliss of the Buddhas is continuously existing. So it continuously, just by continuity is, and I think is not really going to constitute is the cyclic life. So samsara cyclic life, it's, I think, more related to the cyclic life is more related to the the birth, aging, and death is the suffering. The suffering of the birth, suffering of the aging and death. The suffering of birth and aging and death. So then there's if someone, if individual who experience some kind of positive consequences, we think that, something I must have done some good karma in the past. So that gives you the pictures. If I do the positive action, I may, in the future experience the positive result. So then there's the me as a person, existing continuity. So the existing continuity is existing continuity of yourself. And, now I say, existing continuity of yourself, do you really see, this life I am, and the previous life I am, and the next life I am? Is a one entity or a different entity? So if this life I am is continuously existing for the next life, and then which for sure, when this life has ended, this person also died. So once it's died, it ceased to exist, ended, how can it comes, it's reappear again? So now and there's another chance, this is how we project this life I am, and previous life I am, future life I am. But universal, there is a I am. There's the universal I am, that previous life is also I am, this is also I am, future is all I am. So this kind of universal I am that we project, that, that includes past and the present, all I am into one. That remain existing. So that's kind of, it's a comfort for the thought. So it's that the object of the reality that is that is the real for that mental projections, that conceptualizations, that concept, that thinking, believing, So it is not really going to prove that whatever has, died is that very thing that died is not going to prove, and that comes back once again. So this is almost like, so when the in the war, the soldiers, for example, United States soldiers. So one died, but the rest there. The soldier is still there. So how many 10 die, 100 die, a soldier is still there. Even the whole, company they died, but United States is still in there. And there's some Navy, some in the Marine, so different. So it's just for the thought, It's not saying the specific thing is repeatedly happening. Like it's a forest, say, if you cut one tree, the forest hasn't, destroyed yet. A 2 tree cut, 100 tree cut, a forest still there. Maybe there's a, still people call there's a 10 trees left, a forest is still there. So that does not really gives you any satisfaction answer. It's for the language, it's comfortable for the language. So so in the substantial and in the how's that? The objective, there is no such thing as repeating, but so with the mental projection, with the thought and the language, yes, there is continuity. So that continuity is based on appearance of the mind. The appearance of the mind of continuity is because of language, because of the thought. So when, when you see that everything is totally absent, unreal, untrue, and then it stops that the real thing's continuity, the continuity of the cyclic existing as a real, the cyclic existing of the life of the person in cycling in samsara is also as a real is stopped. That particular mind who sees the ultimate truth. Usually, and even those the scientists, they says, when they try to, examine, one, for example, one atoms or one molecules, when they try to examine how many particles, how many atoms in the molecules, each atoms, and how many electrons, the positons. So there's whatever they found, there's 2 atoms, 2 electrons, 3 electrons, 4 electrons. This is that measurement, that is number of that finding is, it is the real, it is the real as long as there's observer measuring, and it is not really giving you, give you, and the real answer, it says with these observations, yes, there is 2 electron has found exist. So only you can say, so with this observer, with this detector, so when detect something, whatever you find, that is the real with relation to that observer. So that beyond that, it cannot say, so you cannot say because it has 2 electrons found, therefore there is no 3 electron, 4 electron. They cannot prove that. So with particular subject, so with that relations, something appears, something's conceived, perceived. So that is real with that subject. So this is why I'm saying, color, sound, smell, taste, textures are real with eye. Color is real with eye consciousness. Color is not real. Color is not real, apart from the eye consciousness, sense faculty. There is no color to be real apart from the light and space and the form. So which means the color do not, color do not exist, within the space, or color do not existing within the light or the form or the sense faculty, like you put things on the table. Yeah, this. So I think if you want to make simple and easy, to express, to like the presentations, then we say the cyclic existing exist as a real with relation to the language and thought. So which means another conventionally, relatively samsara exists, relatively nirvana exists, relatively samsara and nirvana is 2 separate things. Relatively. Ultimately, samsara is no different from the nirvana. Nirvana is no different from the samsara. Ultimately, there is no such thing, samsaric being, as cycling in samsara. So I think that's the kind of people, this most, how's that, easy. So when you read this, Chandrakirti's commentary is saying that, as long as there's misconceptions, you see the cyclic existence. Like the person with eye disease, and the disease remain with eye, you see there's the flies and the hair falls. And the disease is gone. Your eye is free from the disease and stop seeing this. So now samsara, the cyclic existing, is also with misconception, you see the cycle. Without misconception, you cannot see misconceptions. So I think, when you go with easy, like, conventionally, relatively, the samsara and nirvana exists, ultimately not exists. So now here is more, the Chandrakirti, with misconceptions, we are seeing it. So now saying that Arhat do not see the cyclic existence. So now we understand that, Arhat could not see himself in cyclic existence, right? Because his mind is free from misconceptions, ignorance. Therefore, he cannot see himself in cyclic in samsara. He cannot see there is further that he can go to attempt to reach. So he sees that all the actions is now done. all the birth has now ended. All the conditional suffering is totally disappears, ceased, purified, and pacified. So when he say that, now we could, be another question, so then says, Arhat, don't they see samsara in generally? Don't they see us in the cyclic existence? He may not see himself in the cyclic existence, but can he see us in the cyclic existence? If he can see us in cyclic existence, so that means, yes, cyclic existence exists. And then probably when he says, how do you see it? How do you see it? Question to Arhat, how do you see me in the cyclic existence? Arhat may say, I see with these misconceptions, you see the cyclic existence. So now again it's wrong, So I know you are in cyclic existing because with misconception you see the cyclic existence. Still, it's not really satisfying. There's no, fulfilling. So, for example, if you just, someone asks, yesterday I thought you were dreaming because your eyes keep, flickering. And then you say, how do you know I'm dreaming? With this kind of actions, you must be dreaming. So this is kind of like that, Otherwise, says, oh, because of your hand or your kind of your nose or something that proves you are in cyclic existence. There's nothing physically, So this is a really big kind of questions to really determine that, what does that mean? The cyclic existing cycle of life is relatively existing. In what sense is relatively exist? Yeah, any questions? No questions? Chanju semje remboje, ma geba na gejuji, geba nyamba mewa nya, konde pewa. Tonye dawa remboje, ma geba na gejuji, geba nyamba mewa, konde pewa. Pama semje samje, deda denjuji. Ngendro tamje dado tongwa, chanju semba kanda sushu. Teta gunyu molom jubjuruji, kare rabyo kubishima. Penda dewa ma run jowe, jere sema, tinjin jazu.
May the precious body mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. May the precious mind realizing emptiness not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. Due to all these merits, may all father and mother sentient beings have all the happiness, and may all lower realms be empty forever. Wherever there are bodhisattvas, may all their prayers be accomplished immediately. In the sacred land surrounded by snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, O powerful Chinensi Tenzin Gyatso. Remain in this world until samsara ends.
Thank you.